Here's a hike in the Edmund D. Edelman Park in the Santa Monica Mountains, in an area where we've hiked before, but on a different trail. The trailhead is at a quite large turnout off of Topanga Canyon Road, and with a quite large sign that tells us we have arrived at the Edmund G. Edelman Park. And so we start our trek down into the Summit Valley, past the usual kiosk with information about the area. And the trail continues to drop quite briskly from its start at the Topanga Canyon Road trailhead. And here Dale continues his trek along the trail on what, as you can see, was a quite misty morning. And even so, as we reached the bottom, we found the landscape to be quite colorful. And here's an overview of this quite pleasant valley. And we found that the road that we had been on does turn into an actual trail. As Jack pauses for a minute along the way. And in some directions, the landscape is still quite shrouded with early morning fog. And in some areas, the trail continued on through some quite heavily brushed areas. And then we reached a point where there's a 5-way trail junction. And this time we're going to take the trail to the right. This one is known as the Summit Valley Canyon Trail. And it goes along with a gradual climb up into the canyon. And then at 1 mile into the hike, we run across a eucalyptus grove. And this is where we make another change in direction. This new trail zigzags up the hillside, heading south. It also gives us a chance to get a little more exercise. And then partway up, we can look back and see the location of where this trail branched off. And then the trail began to get into some really heavily brushed areas. But it continued to go on uphill. And finally, we broke out at the ridgetop onto a service road, along with a fenced-in area on an adjacent hilltop. And in the other direction, a water tank on another adjacent hilltop. And we can also look over and see parts of the San Fernando Valley on the other side. But we weren't quite sure where that loop trail was that would get us back to our starting point. So we decided to go on up to the hilltop with that fenced area to find out. And from this hilltop, we could look back over the valley, and yes, there it was. That's the trail we wanted. And going down the ridgetop in the right direction. But before starting down that trail, we wanted to take a look at that fenced area on the hilltop to see what it was. It had a small box of dried brush with some kind of detector above it. We surmised that it might be intended to measure the moisture content of the brush for predicting possible fire danger. And then we started our journey back down the return trail, which followed a ridgeline between two valley areas. And along the way, we could get some pretty good views of this Summit Valley area. And then we found a glimpse of the trail that got us started along the way. And then we made it back to that trail or road and worked our way back on up out of the valley to our starting point along Topanga Canyon Road.